Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, and wherever you are physically watching this video, you are welcome. You are welcome as part of this community. Our reading this morning is taken from the Gospel of Matthew, verses 22 to 33, and I will be reading out of Eugene Peterson's The Message. This is the story of Jesus walking on the water. As soon as the meal was finished, Jesus insisted that the disciples get in the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the people. With the crowd dispersed, he climbed the mountain so he could be by himself and pray. He stayed there alone, late into the night. Meanwhile, the boat was far out to sea when the wind came up against them, and they were battered by the waves. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. They were scared out of their wits. "A ghost!" they said, crying out in terror. But Jesus was quick to comfort them. "Courage! It's me! Don't be afraid!" Peter, suddenly bold, said, "Master, if it's really you, call me to come to you on the water." And Jesus said, "Come ahead." Jumping out of the boat, Peter walked on the water to Jesus. But when he looked down at the waves churning beneath his feet, he lost his nerve and started to sink. He cried out, "Master, save me!" Jesus did not hesitate. He reached down and grabbed his hand, and then he said, "Faint heart, what got into you?" The two of them climbed into the boat, and the wind died down. The disciples in the boat, having watched the whole thing, worshiped Jesus, saying, "This is it. You are God's Son, for sure." That's all it took. One plane, one bomb, one city. August 6th, 1945. I was all of 8 months old. Then it happened again 3 days later, August 9th, 1945. Bombing patterns are designed to create a firestorm, to destroy as much landscape as possible, as much civilian morale as possible. First Hiroshima, then Nagasaki. One bomb did what a squadron of bombers flying in precise formation would do. Did we need to do it? Scholars, poets, philosophers, and generals will debate till the end of time. It happened. It's done. We deal with the aftermath, and now 75 years later it is still with us. We lament, we find fault, we grieve. We rebuild lost infrastructure and create new friendship, new trust. We build relationships, hopefully in new and creative ways. Somewhere in there, we forgive. We do not forget. We may have to forgive many times, each time deeper and more meaningfully than the last. We give up seeking grievances and retribution. We go beyond shaking fists at one another and start shaking hands with one another. Nothing is ever simple. Did Jesus smoothly glide across the water, those stormy waves? Probably not. Waves splashed around him. Sometimes he sank in up to his knees or even to his waist. But he kept coming, post-holing, as we would say, going through deep snow. Peter started out confidently, then lost his nerve. It is hard to stay focused when it appears that the world is falling apart around you. It is hard to keep moving forward when the ground keeps shifting underfoot. Courage is not being fearless. It is facing our fears and going ahead anyway. Both Hiroshima and Nagasaki have created peace parks. I would like to take you to the peace parks in Nagasaki. There are 2. one filled with monuments from nations around the globe, some no longer in existence, such as the German Democratic Republic, which is now part of a reunified Germany. The other park is stark, devoid of monuments, except for a large statue of a woman in a flowered dress holding a dead or dying child. This is the hypocenter. But let's begin with the flowered stairway leading to the gifts of friendship. At the top of the stairs is a refreshing fountain in the form of a dove, the wings of a dove of peace. The walkway leading to the monuments is constructed of woven patterns of colored pavers. We are all interwoven with each other. We tend to think insularly, but we really need to think outside of ourselves, consider others. What might be the repercussions of my acts on my family, my neighbors, locally and globally? What am I doing to make the world a better place for all of us to live in? By all of us, I include plants and animals. We are all interwoven, interrelated, mutually dependent. The entire Peace Park speaks to reconciliation, to peace. It honors love and life. Never spoken, but threaded throughout is the message, we are here for you, and this must never happen again. When the bombs first dropped, we did not truly fathom the unthinkableness of nuclear weapons. These are instruments of incredible destruction and loss of life, never to be bandied about lightly. We can do this. We can learn to live in peace and harmony with each other. We can learn to speak to others. We can learn to listen and to live with people who are not like us in our local as well as global neighborhoods. Remember, Peter did walk on water until he lost his concentration. Focus on love, compassion, justice. Remember how interrelated we all are. In China, a tour guide gave us origami cranes she had folded specifically to give to us. In the visitors area in Nagasaki, we received another crane. These we left with a giant silver statue in the park. Cranes were everywhere, garlands and strings of cranes cascading down. The memorial I found most moving was that from St. Paul, Minnesota, Nagasaki's sister city. This relationship goes back before the war. They are the oldest sister cities in Japan. It is a globe featuring 7 human figures, each representing a continent, interlocking hands and feet. We are one, even as we are many. The hypocenter is so moving in its simplicity. The bomb exploded before it reached the ground to maximize its destructive potential. There is nearly nothing left. The center is surrounded by concentric rings representing shock waves, winds, and heat, and radiation that billowed out from the detonation site like rings at a pond from a cast pebble. Standing at one side is the lone remaining tower from a Catholic church that stood a few blocks away, the Church of Saints Peter and Paul. You can see the saints standing atop the tower, keeping watch. Opposite this is a large figure of a woman in a flowered dress. She holds a dead child in her arms. The massive plinth contains only the inscription 1945, 8/9/1102. The quiet of this place can take the breath away with a recognition of the enormity of human folly and destructive capability. Did we have to drop those bombs? We will never be able to answer that. What we must do is ensure nothing like this ever happens again. And yet the 20th century has seen one bloodbath after another. Somewhere on the earth is a war. Someone wants power and control. Someone wants retribution for redress of grievances or injustice, real or imagined. We don't have to act this way. We can choose to live life and hope, justice and forgiveness. I leave you with a poem written July 31st by Mina Schmid, accompanied by her photograph taken the morning she wrote the poem. It is hard to have hope when everything is crumbling, dust falling through my fingers, when sickness and death spread across the land like ash and smoke. But I know this, I have to try. I have to try to find hope wherever I can. It was a beautiful morning, with the sun streaming through the trees, the air glistening with dew. Then I returned home. A fawn was curled up in my front yard, mostly hidden in the vegetation, waiting for Mama to come back. And I knew that I could have nothing but hope, because everything depends on it.